From the Mapleview Animal Hospital studios, this is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Thursday, April the 30th. Thursday mornings at this time, we normally have a chance to chat with U.S. House Representative Bill Huizenga from R-Zeeland. He is on the other end of our Zoom connection. Bill, good morning. Hope all is well.
We're doing all right, Gary. Thanks. How about you?
Not too bad. For a moment, I thought we would be having to chat with you from Washington, but earlier this week, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said, no, there will be no meetings. The Capitol Hill physician said it would not be wise. And we mentioned a little bit about the fact that what you said last week about the possibility of, not of having proxy voting. You weren't a big fan of that, and certainly that's not going to be the case here.
No, it's not. And as we remember, there was discussions of trying to figure out how to pull together a session of Congress without Congress actually being there. Excuse me. In general, I think that's a bad idea. It's interesting, though, that the Senate is actually there. So the Senate doctor and the House doctor apparently don't agree. But look, at the end of the day, these are important, highly expensive decisions that are being made that, frankly, I believe deserve personal attention. On top of the fact that there's this funny little thing called the Constitution that gets in the way of some of the things that she was trying to do. So, look, Gary, at the beginning of this, we knew that this was going to be a long process. But if we can't take a couple of days just to let some things settle out here, then I think we're really abdicating our decision making again. So I mean, I don't feel bad that we're not in Washington because I'm not sure how productive it would be. But I think the reasons and why they're not there because she doesn't have proxy voting is not the right reason to be not going back.
Quick question. Speaking of that constitutionality, Bill, do you get a feeling perhaps that Congress is a part of some of the decision making that's being done by the president in this situation? Because yes, the president needs to make some executive decisions, but he's not doing it alone. He's not doing it in a vacuum.
No, and that's actually an interesting contrast to what's being discussed in Lansing right now. And I've been on the phone as always with lots of people throughout the day, and seeing what's going on there. And the governor's hanging her hat on a 1945 law and a 1976 law, which appear to be in some conflict with each other. And that's really sort of drawing a contrast to what we know are the enumerated powers of the president and the constitutional enumerated powers of Congress. And there's broad latitude that's given to the executive, whether it's at the national level or at the state level, but there has to be a lane for the people's voice, which is the legislative voice. And certainly, whether it's the additional dollars going into that Paycheck Protection Program, or additional dollars going into the hospitals, or additional dollars going into research for testing and that are going to CDC and so many other of the alphabet soup of federal organizations, there has been a stamp from Congress on it.
We're talking with Zeeland Congressman Bill Huizenga. Apologize for some of the audio issues on our side, but I will ask you this, Bill. You have a tele-town hall meeting scheduled with at the top of the hour from when we are recording this, and again, an opportunity for constituents to ask you questions. Based on what you've been hearing from previous tele-town halls, what have been some of the biggest concerns the constituents have brought forward to you?
Well, at a federal level, it's been more questions about the Paycheck Protection Program, been getting questions about the HEROES Act, which is our helping emergency responders overcome emergency situations. That's the federal tax holiday for front lines healthcare workers and first responders. So that certainly has been a question. We've gotten a couple of questions about the GLRI, Great Lakes Restoration, and what's happening with high water. That's still going on, as we know. But it's interesting, the two things that have, in addition to PPP, that have dominated have been state issues. What's happening with the unemployment insurance situation, and what there's a lot of, let me put it this way, there's a lot of anger about the governor's directive on the shelter in place and the extension. That's been modified somewhat. So we'll see how this morning's telephone town hall goes. Yeah, we've done them everything from 7:30 at night to now 9 o'clock in the morning. We've tried to vary that. This is, I think, our 8th week in a row of doing that. I should mention one other thing that is a federal issue that comes up is that stimulus check. What's happening? What's the process there? We know that there's been a couple of 100 million of them delivered already, including to Social Security recipients. That's been another big issue.
Bill, let me ask you this. Earlier this week, your office, in fact, was yesterday, a press release from Boomer, $8 million in mental and behavioral health grants for West Michigan community mental health providers. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was predominantly two up north, one based in Ludington, and the other one based in Muskegon. Health West is the name of that one. And these are two $4 million grants that are going into these community mental health organizations that were part of CARES Act, and we know that there is a toll. There's the physical, I would even argue spiritual, but certainly emotional toll that has been taking place here as people have been having to shelter in place for so long and having a lot of uncertainty in their lives. Talk to anybody in either the mental health field or in the law enforcement field, they will tell you that they've seen an uptick in everything from domestic violence to mental health needs on the increase. So we're trying to address that, and they're great organizations doing that.
Let me ask you this, some of the relaxing of other states and to a certain extent Michigan's stay home, stay safe, and other states state shelter in place situations. In that situation, do you get a sense that perhaps some of these relaxation of the policies, maybe not so much has to do with health as it is perhaps more and more of the populace getting unrest because maybe they're not directly affected, but they're having to, shall we say, be safe on the situation when they're not really directly affected?
Let me characterize the telephone town halls over the last couple of weeks. I believe the governor has had a credibility problem. Whether it was the fishing situation that we talked about, you could go out in a rowboat, but not if it had a trolling motor, to the landscaping and lawn care situation. Michigan is still, if not the only, it's one of two states that does not allow construction. I mean, for crying out loud, New York and New Jersey are allowing construction because construction can happen on the outside. It can be done in a very low risk manner. So there's a number of folks that have brought forward ideas in the space. In fact, I know that there's a call going out for all the realtors and those involved in closings and bank mortgages and customers. There's a call to action that's happening, I believe today, on that, because again, Michigan is one of the few states that is not allowing real estate closings. Well, people have contracts. This is, they have to be out of a house at a certain date, and there are financial penalties if they don't. They have to be into a house. Some of them are going into new houses that are in the process of being built, which haven't had any work done on them in over a month. So it's those kinds of things that you can go back in a very low risk manner. I know that prior to the shutdown on closings, for example, they were doing closings with people in separate rooms and doing it over things like Zoom. We've got to figure out a way how to get back to work in a safe manner, in a low risk manner as possible.
One final thing, and I'll need to ask you this, and I can understand maybe you want to be a little reticent on it, but I'll need to ask you this anyway. The announcement yesterday by the third House District Representative Justin Amash that he is setting up an exploratory committee for a run at president as a libertarian, and that he has really not campaigned for re-election in a couple of months right now. Your thoughts about Mr. Amash's decision? And I'll preface it right off the bat. I'm not surprised.
I'm not either. I've known Justin a long time. We came into Congress together. It was very apparent to me that he had no chance of winning as an independent to return to Congress. I think he despises President Trump and is willing to do just about anything. And whether it's ego driven or just purely philosophically driven, the chance of him becoming our president is even less than what his chance of returning to Congress was. So, and look, there's a lot of stuff going on in Washington. We're seeing what's happening with Michael Flynn now, and some of those details coming out. We're seeing what's happening and with the coronavirus and the economic response. I think it's a distraction with what he's doing here in Michigan. But to each his own. All the best to him, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
He is Zeeland Congressman Bill Huizenga. He joins us every Thursday morning, or shall we say most Thursday mornings, to talk about some of the issues in Washington, or in case in the 2nd District, where he is right now. Again, the teleconference today is at 9. More information, huizenga.house.gov. If all goes well, Bill, let's do this again next Thursday morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. Talk to you soon.
That is Bill Huizenga, the congressman from Zeeland, on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.